author Tillery here, the Mistress of Horror, and I'm back for my monthly podcast. This is April's official monthly podcast. You'll notice there's been two this month because March came a little late. Anyway, I want to jump into the first segment of this podcast, and as you know, my podcast tends to be about my writing, what I'm doing currently, or another subject based around writing. The first topic I wanted to talk about in this episode is the fact that I coined myself the Mistress of Horror. And that's a funny topic because the reason why I coined myself the Mistress of Horror was because scouring the list of the Masters of Horror, all the Masters of Horror are guys. So you have, Wes Craven, Stephen King, Clive Barker. It's a mixture of writers and directors in Hollywood that end up on that list. And then there's different ones depending on the subject of the category, more or less, of who it would be. So, and everyone has their opinions too. But there's ones on there that you can't refute. So, that being said, they were masters of horror. But I didn't know there was a list of mistresses of horror or whatever, female, whatever of horror. So, I was like, I think I'll just coin myself and take the title of the Mistress of Horror, So I decided to do that, and that's how that happened. There are some people that use, I've seen there's a website or something where someone uses the Mistress of Horror, but that person is not a writer or director, just talks about horror in cases like reviews and things like that. And then I seen, when you type in the Mistress of Horror, if you Google it, the first thing or first person that usually comes up when you type that in is Elvira, because she's the Mistress of the Dark. That was like her coined thing. That's not the Mistress of Horror, but, it's relatable as far as the words are concerned, especially when you Google it. I think I'm like the third or fourth thing that shows up because, I coined it pretty much as being a writer because I'm not really talking about all the other things people use it for, like titles of an article or something like that. I'm talking about being the Mistress of Horror and creating horror stories and being the Mistress of said horror or whatever. And I use it on all my things because that's what I consider myself, Mistress of Horror. I love horror. I'm a fan of horror movies and books and anime and video games. Everything that is horror. There isn't like an aspect where I'm only reading horror books or I'm only watching horror movies. I am immersed in horror things, so to speak. So, hence, I think I'm going to keep the title of Mistress of Horror because I said so. Um, but yeah, so it's relatable in all the things that I like. So that's how the Mistress of Horror title was born, and I'm going to keep it. In this case, I just wanted to bring that up and talk a little bit about why I call myself the Mistress of Horror. I don't like to speak about things I don't know about. So you will always see me when I talk about something, I definitely will know about it before I speak of it. When I talk about horror things, it's definitely something that I know about and in detail. No lie. Alright, moving on to the second segment of this podcast. It's going to be what has been going on with my next short horror story that's releasing. That would be Fractals. It technically already released because it released a while back in the Served Cold anthology by Regina St. Clair over at the Haunted Library, and I'm releasing it solo later this summer. It's a small, again, book, like similar to The Room Within size, but again, some people like physical books, so I don't want to leave them out even when it's a short story. Book cover reveal for Fractals with the official trailer releasing together. Out for Fractals. If you have not read it in the Served Cold anthology, then you can go ahead and just wait, I suppose, and get the physical or ebook version of it solo. But yeah, I'm looking forward to releasing that. And if you don't know, all of my stories tend to be in my Cagliostro universe. I've said this quite a few times, but I'm saying it again because those are the facts. So that's the general plan for Fractals. The actual date is late July. Moving on to the third segment, writing. What again has been going with writing over the last 3 weeks since I did the last podcast. Um, wow. I finished the short horror erotica that I wrote that's going to be in an anthology, and then um, I am working on another erotica that is not horror based, shockingly, but I do write other things besides horror, as I said before, and that's going slow. So I have a lot going on as per usual, but I'm just trying to push myself to finish. Yeah, it's a slow burn. I mean, I like the story. I love it's been outlined. I have started. It's not going to take long because it's not going to be. It's a short story, so. But it's been. I think I might be a little bit drained. I think because I've been writing nonstop for the last 2 months, preparing all these other releases that I'm going to do this year. I mean, technically, right now, I have quite a few things that's going to be coming out, as I spoke about in my last podcast. But I do have an intentive date for all of the things, which I will be mentioning in my next segment here. But, yes. So the writing has been a bit slow coming the last week or so because I have a lot, again, like I said, going on right now in personal life. So it is pulling my mind away, and I'm trying to refocus it. And sometimes I have to step away and I have to go do something else that is not writing related because my mind is so bombarded. And as a writer, you should know that your mind cannot be bombarded with other things to that degree when you're trying to, bring your words out and put them on page or paper or whatever you want to call it at this point. So yes, that's where I am right now, but I'm writing today, actually, right after I finish this podcast, and at least I'd like, a low end for me in a day of writing is 1,500 words or so. I don't like to pull anything under that when I'm writing, because then I'm not getting enough words out for me, So I'm really going to push to at least finish the first chapter of this one, because usually my short stories, when they're full, I'm air quoting, short stories, I usually like to have at least 3 chapters, so I usually outline that way. So I have at least 3 more scenes to finish, and then I'll be done chapter 1 of this particular story, because I really do need to get it completed, because I have another project that I have to start right away. Plus, I'm in the middle of beta reading for another horror writer, and I have another story on the side that I'm alpha reading for another writer. So I have a lot of stuff in my writing, stuff that I'm doing that I usually don't do at the same time that I'm doing projects, because I don't really like to get distracted. But I'm trying to help out other writers as well, even when I'm busy, So I'll see how to work all that in, but I usually tend to make myself a schedule, and I'm usually fine. So that's how the writing's going. So let's go ahead and move into the next segment. This will be the last segment. This is a shorter podcast too, because even though I'm doing a monthly, the other one ran into the other one, so it covered some of this stuff too. But this one is my planned releases for this year. I did mention them in the last podcast, but I have a more distinctive schedule planned right now. So, as it currently stands, I plan to release Fractals in summer. Then my poetry collection, which will be the first of that, in fall, the first part of fall. And then I plan to release Cagliostro closer to the end of fall, but not the end of fall so much as it will be closer to Halloween-ish time, because it is horror, so I figured it works well, whatever. So 2 in fall, as we have said, 1 in summer, as I have said, 1 in the summer. And then I have 2 planned for the winter. So So the ones planned for the winter is, well, one is solo. That would be When the Night Cries. So that would be the first book in the Nana series that I've been mentioning. And I have the cover being made now. I have my formatter lined up, and I have a schedule for me to finish the first book, because it's not finished, it's half done, or a little more than half. I'm not sure where I am with it right now, but I'll have it done. Once I sit down and write, I'll get it done, so I'm not overly worried about the timing. So it's planned to be released in the winter. I like to give myself 3 months for advertising time, so that means these will have to be ready, in editor hand when I start advertising. Because when I start advertising, that means it's in the editor's hand, or I already have it back from the editor and it's ready to go, and all that jazz. And the pre-order is ready to go, because that's part of the advertising process for me. So, again, the schedule plans to be Fractals summer, late summer, went fall poetry, my dark romance poetry collection. Closer to Halloween, which is the end of fall, Cagliostro Tale of the Libertine, Book 1. And then winter is When the Night Cries. But there's another possibility in winter for me to be, one of my short horror stories to be released in the planned anthology by Regina St. Clair over the Haunted Library, the new one that's coming out. So that one's kind of up in the air, because I don't know, if I'll be chosen for it, and then also if it's going to release, 22 winter or 23 winter, So we'll see. I'm playing that one by ear. So technically I have 3, what's that, 1, 2, 2, 4, 5, that's 5 planned releases, but possible releases, but 4 for sure. Now, if something happens, like a hiccup, some crazy thing with editing, or, a cover artist thing, there's nothing I can do about that, but I would update you all as that happens. I really want to thank everybody for following my stuff and being interested in my stuff. The Room Within, which is the last segment of this, technically that was supposed to be the last segment, but I'm throwing in a little extra bonus here. So, The Room Within is doing decent, considering I don't really advertise it that much. Again, like I said in one of my other podcasts, The Room Within was a test baby for me, because I needed to learn KDP, see how it worked, play with the whole cover artist and the formatter and all this stuff, and see how it all worked. So I just used one of my short stories that were already published in the anthology as the test runner, so to speak. That being said, it still does pretty well. I still sell a few ebooks and a few paperbacks each month, which is cool without me having to advertise it much. So that's doing decent for me. And I figure as I release more things, then the Room Within will get more more leg space, more road running. So I'm not overly worried about that. But yes, everything's going well. It's at the end of April at this point. I will, of course, be doing my podcast for May. Once that rolls in, I'll finally be back on track with that. I do have a newsletter that I wanted to bring up again that I'm revamping, because I don't have many subscribers yet, but I'm also haven't been pushing the newsletter, because I'm revamping, trying to see which company I'm going to go with, because I was going with the one that's from my website, but until I build a big fan base, I don't really want to have to pay out a lot of money for the newsletter, as far as a monthly subscription, because it's no point until you have a lot of people to do that. So I'm trying to decide who I want to go with. Probably MailChimp. I haven't decided, but when I do, I'll do an official video of call out for people to subscribe to the newsletter, which won't be too far from now, because since I'll be releasing Fractals by the end of summer, I want to make sure I have the newsletter well in place within the next couple of weeks. So look for a video from me about that if you're interested in following me. My first ones that came out was about horror tipping. So it's stuff about horror. We have the monster of the month and things like that. So it's a lot of cool information in it, plus what my books and stuff is releasing. I like to run a little contest too that I'm going to be doing. So that should be something fun. But yeah, so that's what's happening with April, the end of April rolling out. And it's been an interesting month. So I better get back to work, and I will see you all in the next one. Stay scared.